Started First Boss in 1976. I was the first Freddie Mac bond trader. And so the mortgage market was just, if it's infancy.
Even more this afternoon, they are talking about the details of their corporate bond purchases and buying corporate debt ETFs. The unprecedented move driving an explosion in the corporate debt market.
We are committed to using our full range of tools to support the economy and to help assure that the recovery from this difficult period will be as robust as possible.
It is aimed at preserving America's overall economy.
This corporation secretly governs the entire world. There are a few extremely powerful corporations out there, and you've probably heard of a few of them, such as ABC, Apple, and Koch Industries. But there's a good chance you've never heard of Blackrock. This corporation was created in 1988 and has grown to become widely regarded as the company that, effectively owns the globe in just over 30 years. Managing assets valued around $10 trillion. So what exactly is Blackrock, and how did a risk management firm become the world's largest asset holder, handling the funds of possibly millions of regular people? Blackrock Incorporated is an international investment management firm based in the United States. It began as a risk management and fixed income institutional asset manager in New York City and has since grown to operate globally with 70 offices in 30 countries and clients in 100 countries. So, what's the deal here? Larry Fink created Blackrock in 1988, and he would go on to be the chairman and CEO, along with Robert Escopedo, Susan Wagner, Barbara Novick, Ben Gallup, Hugh Frieder, and Ralph Schlossty. They must have struck a bargain with the devil because this business was profitable within months, and the group's assets had doubled to $2.7 billion by the following year. The term Blackrock was first used by the company in 1992. That same year, the company managed $17 billion in assets, which grew to $53 billion by '94. To say the least, Blackrock's rise was meteoric. Over the years, Blackrock would expand organically, as well as through numerous acquisitions. By 2004, Blackrock's acquisitions would have increased its assets under management to an absurd $325 billion, which is nowhere near as absurd as it is today. However, it was already large enough for the U.S. government to contract with Blackrock to assist in resolving the fallout from the 2008 financial meltdown. By 2009, Blackrock would be the world's leading asset manager. Blackrock is bigger than the world's largest bank, the Industrial and Commercial Bank of China, and has been regarded as a specter haunting Wall Street for several years. Despite the fact that it remains a mystery to most, it has received a healthy amount of criticism. After all, you can't get as big as Blackrock without rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. They have been chastised for the environmental impact of their properties. Blackrock is one of the top 3 shareholders in nearly every major oil business, and it is one of the top 10 shareholders in 7 of the top 10 coal companies. These would be rather severe criticisms, but Blackrock tries to deflect them by investing extensively in environmental preservation and sustainability. That's correct. Even genuine criticisms are insufficient to halt the expansion of this giant. And when I say giant, I mean it. Blackrock oversees several trillion dollars in assets, accounting for around 10% of all financial assets worldwide. However, its scope extends far beyond simply purchasing and holding stocks and bonds. Blackrock advises central banks, financial ministries, and large investors such as state funds, pension funds, and insurance companies. They also use its vast fund portfolio to invest in companies all around the world. From their headquarters in Midtown Manhattan, Blackrock is involved in almost every aspect of the financial market. Blackrock has influence all throughout the world. They own considerable investments in firms on almost every continent, in addition to large stakes in major U.S. banks. Blackrock handles everything, from automobile manufacturing in Germany to iron ore mining in South America to gold mining in Africa. So, how do they go about it? The financial sector is constantly evolving. What worked a few years ago will almost likely not work now. This is something Blackrock understands well. So they created an immensely strong software platform called Aladdin to assist them deal with these shifting tides. Aladdin's job is to conduct risk assessments for BlackRock's clients. It obtains sensitive data from significant institutions such as banks and insurance firms and utilizes it to perform high-stakes risk analysis for which people pay expensive fees to BlackRock. Aladdin is a 5,000 computer network. Its role is to keep track of millions of trades, and they analyze their clients' portfolios 24 hours a day, running through every imaginable situation and pinpointing with horrifying accuracy what may go wrong, delivering some really accurate risk analysis. This software is extremely common. It's essentially becoming the central nervous system for some of the world's greatest financial firms, yet I'm sure you've never heard of it. Aladdin serves a much broader purpose for BlackRock than just risk analysis. This software grants them access to sensitive data from important institutions around the world, such as banks, pension funds, and insurance companies, essentially providing them with insight into the management of about $20 trillion in assets on top of BlackRock's massive $10 trillion in assets. Already manages with such wealth and information at his disposal, BlackRock has established a comfortable position in the global economy. It owns stock and voting rights in several of Europe's largest corporations, including those in energy, oil and gas, transportation, and food. You know, the kind of stuff that society requires to function. Trust me, BlackRock's hold over society is far stronger than you might assume. It owns bonds representing public debt. It manages pension money for a large number of people and has political power. Central banks regularly engage BlackRock to audit normal banks and advise them on management, and the firm also serves as a counselor to entire governments. When the institution in charge of a country's whole financial machinery has you on fast dial, you're in a league of your own. The irony here is that, because BlackRock is so large, it is frequently a substantial stakeholder in these same banks. The central banks desire that they audit and advise. This means that BlackRock is actually sitting on both sides of the table, advising the government on how to manage banks that they already own. Even if that weren't the case, this simply gives BlackRock more access to confidential and extremely sensitive information, which will serve to make them even richer. So, who was the key man responsible for creating this behemoth, and how wealthy must he be? If you're looking for someone to thank or blame for the development of BlackRock, go no further than a millionaire. Fink, Larry. Fink has always been known as the guy who always wanted more than he had, as well as someone who knows the markets through and out, which is a potent combination to say the least. Ironically, he would only become the founder of such a phenomenally successful company after his employers suffered a massive $100 million loss. For better or worse, Larry Fink's climb to popularity has been littered with ironic turns. He not only created one of the key tools that contributed to the economic crisis, but he was also the one hired by the U.S. Treasury to clean it up. He would earn a reputation as a true investment mastermind, and by the age of 31, he had become Boston's youngest managing director in history, contributing $1 billion to their bottom line. Larry was, for all intents and purposes, a golden goose. That is, until he was no longer. Larry would end up costing his firm $100 million and would become a toxic asset overnight, ostracized and thrown out of a corporation. He worked for a ludicrous amount of money for 12 years. Doesn't that sound like the perfect villain origin story? Fink began his career on Wall Street at the age of 23, quickly rising through the ranks and becoming something of a legend in a decade, helping to develop the debt securitization market, which revolutionized how loans were handled on Wall Street. He would later help build BlackRock, transforming it into the behemoth that it is today. Of course, there will be hitches along the way. But one thing is certain, Larry Fink has clearly recovered. He's worth over $1 billion, and he controls assets worth several $1 trillion. And with a hand in the financial decisions of the U.S. government, we're not done talking about how incredibly powerful BlackRock is. For better or worse, Larry Fink's climb to popularity has been littered with ironic turns. He not only created one of the key tools that contributed to the economic crisis, but he was also the one hired by the U.S. Treasury to clean it up. He would earn a reputation as a true investment mastermind, and by the age of 31, he had become Boston's youngest managing director in history, contributing $1 billion to their bottom line. For one thing, they are much more involved than most people realize in a few extremely popular companies and projects. BlackRock owns a significant chunk of Apple stock, giving them access to the company's large market share, as well as smartphones and tablets. They also own shares in Microsoft, the other tech sector behemoth, demonstrating to everyone that with enough money, you don't need to manufacture a single semiconductor to wield power in business. Larry was, for all intents and purposes, a golden goose. That is, until he was no longer. Larry would end up costing his firm $100 million and would become a toxic asset overnight, ostracized and thrown out of a corporation. He worked for a ludicrous amount of money for 12 years. Doesn't that sound like the perfect villain origin story? BlackRock also has significant holdings in pharmaceutical businesses, such as Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson, because they know where to direct their investments. Consider not investing on items that humans require to survive. And as I previously stated, some of BlackRock's largest holdings are in large oil companies, such as ExxonMobil and Chevron. BlackRock has also invested in a number of significant initiatives. Its presence has grown in sustainable investing, as well as environmental, social, and corporate governance. Essentially, they've spent a lot of money attempting to go green, while also looking beautiful. BlackRock has utilized its enormous influence to bring attention to environmental and diversity issues, such as mailing letters to CEOs and investing in programs such as the Carbon Disclosure Project. He would later help build BlackRock, transforming it into the behemoth that it is today. Of course, there will be hitches along the way, but one thing is certain. Larry Fink has clearly recovered. He's worth over $1 billion, and he controls assets worth several trillion dollars. And with a hand in the financial decisions of the U.S. government, we're not done talking about how incredibly powerful BlackRock is. BlackRock appears to have been lobbying the U.S. government to adopt rules forcing private corporations to publicly disclose their climate impact, board diversity, and other measures, while also financially supporting companies that aren't doing any of those things. Things mean that, once again, BlackRock is on both sides of the table, but they can't help themselves. For one thing, they are much more involved than most people realize in a few extremely popular companies and projects. BlackRock owns a significant chunk of Apple stock, giving them access to the company's large market share, as well as smartphones and tablets. They also own shares in Microsoft, the other tech sector behemoth, demonstrating to everyone that with enough money, you don't need to manufacture a single semiconductor to wield power in the business. They're just that strong. So, are you aware of the company that covertly runs the world? Do you believe there is a company that can compete with BlackRock? Let me know in the comments below. That's all for today. If you liked the video, subscribe to our channel Think Insider, and don't forget to hit the bell icon. Think Insider, and don't forget to hit the bell icon.